I hope there's some Jonas Brothers in here.
Not as much as I wanted there to be. There were so many things I could have talked about that I had to take it down. But basically, hi everyone, and welcome to Fandom 101, the pop chat guide to fans and brands. So just as a brief introduction, I'm Georgie. I am based here in Sydney, Australia. By day, I am a publicist at Walker Books Australia. It's Candlewick Press in America, but we're the home to everyone's favorite kids' books. We do Where's Wally or Where's Waldo, Guess How Much I Love You, the never-ending young adult hype machine that is Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunters. So I spend my day with kids' books and it's pretty great. But today I'm wearing the hat I don't get paid for, which is being a PhD candidate in fandom and celebrity studies. On this slide and throughout the presentation, you'll also be getting to see some of my many celebrity meet and greet photos from my past life as a publicist for a giant fan convention here in Australia. So I hope you enjoy all of these awkward photos. But yes, back to my PhD. I am currently drowning in tens of thousands of words on fans and fandom. Yes, this is a real bona fide area of academic study, as much as my parents still do question what I'm doing. I am technically a sociologist, but I draw a lot on my undergrad degree in media and communications for this work. And basically, to cut like a very involved topic short, I'm looking at how fandom communities are commodified and the impact this has on fan experiences. My main research interests are fandom hierarchies and fan-celebrity interactions, so basically paid meet and greets. But it's much more common for those in my field to be studying the more like textual world, so like fanfic, fan engagement with TV shows and movies, and wider societal issues such as how race, gender, and sexuality intersect with media and fan spaces. So yes, you did see on that previous slide that my case studies are Taylor Swift and Supernatural. Yes, that is a bizarre combination, I know, but again, there's an entire chapter of my thesis explaining why it works, but as you can see, I've devoted a lot of my thesis to putting as many Taylor Swift song lyrics and Supernatural quotes as chapter subheadings as I can. And I also have an entire appendix that's just matching Taylor Swift songs and lyrics to Supernatural storylines, because we all need to have niche hobbies, apparently. So yeah, I spend my days writing about Taylor Swift and Supernatural and what their fandoms can tell us about the world and wider fan culture. So today, though, I'm going to be giving you a quick overview into something those of you who follow me on Twitter have probably muted me for never shutting up about, and that's brands, fandom, and how we're still managing to get a lot of it wrong in 2021. I'll be walking you through what fandom is and then explaining why the way a lot of marketers and strategists and media people use the term isn't actually correct, before winding up with some thoughts on fan engagement. So I grew up in fandom, firstly through Harry Potter when I was in primary school, before expanding into my love for the Jonas Brothers, then the ubiquitous Super Wholock Tumblr years, then One Direction, and then more recently I've been very into the NHL fandom. It kind of goes on and on and on. And because of this, it's quite easy to forget that a lot of people don't actually realize that fandom is a very specific concept. And it's not just a word that can be slapped on any audience. To boil it down to its very bare bones, a fandom is a community of fans who engage with each other, and it's not controlled or organized by a brand or organization. So this slide is kind of boring, but it has some key definitions for words that are central to the entertainment fan space and how they kind of are all similar but different. But the key difference is that you can have a community who share a common interest, and that interest may be an entertainment space, but that doesn't make it a fandom. A fandom requires community participation outside of consuming the official object. So the way I kind of describe these differences to people, and I'll use my new favorite obsession, Ted Lasso, as an example, but an audience is everybody who watches Ted Lasso. A fan is somebody who watches it and enjoys it. And a fandom are the people who take it a step further and might go and write fan fiction about Ted Lasso, which I have checked and there is a lot. They might change their display names. They might join a group chat. So they take it further than just being like, oh my God, I love the new episode. And that's when they become a fandom. So just talking about it on Twitter doesn't make you part of a fandom. As I've noted through my personal examples, fandoms are not restricted to any one object. If it's an entertainment text, and yes, sport can definitely be read as an entertainment text, but that's a whole other talk for me to do, there's probably a fandom out there for it. And a lot of the time when people think about fandom, they think about fan fiction. And while a big part of my research is moving away from the fan studies focus on fic, I do just want to point out that people write fic for everything. So down the side there, I have just some common fanfic stats that are happening. A few of them are fandoms I'm involved with. I found the Formula One RPF stats there because I know some people are into Formula One, and I wanted to show that there are almost 12,000 fanfics out there for it. But yeah, it's a huge world, and especially like sport and RPF has a much bigger fanfic realm than most people think about. So not only do the fandoms exist, but people are probably writing about the characters and people involved having sex. You just have to know where to look. Okay, so while there can be fandoms for just about everything, I often and increasingly frequently see marketers and strategists and people involved in the media using the word fandom, but making it clear they don't know what they're talking about. And they're just slapping the label on things. So this slide has a list of things that I've recently seen people call fandoms that are just not. Someone being a fan of something or a supporter or a devoted consumer does not magically mean something is a fandom. As a reminder, a fandom requires participation and engagement away from the official object of fandom. So somebody playing a game, somebody buying like every sneaker, somebody who follows a creator on Patreon and joins their Discord, or somebody who buys every object of a brand. They're loyal consumers, they're brand loyalists, they might even be members of that brand community, as I'll get to in a minute, but you know, buying an NFT and being involved in that, you're not in a fandom. And it annoys me a bit when people say that that's what a fandom is, but that's my personal pet peeve. Okay, and so I promised myself I wasn't going to make this academic, but I was rereading the seminal fan studies text, Textual Poachers, the other day. If anybody's ever done any form of media studies class, or any work on fan studies at college, you probably had to read this book. And I found this quote and I knew I had to include it. Some of you might think I'm being pedantic with my emphasis on why fandom is a specific thing, but Henry Jenkins, who wrote Textual Poachers, really describes the importance of differentiating between these terms. So he says, we would want to distinguish between participatory culture, a broad movement which takes many forms across history, fandom, a specific kind of participatory culture with its own history and traditions, and Web 2.0, a business model which seeks to capitalize and commodify participatory culture. Maintaining these distinctions allows us to use fandom as a base for critiquing many of the policies of Web 2.0 companies that seek to capitalize on free labor or commodify the gifts that fans share. And so this was in the introduction to the 20th anniversary of the book back in 2012, but not much has changed. We're still seeing a lot of this stuff in Web 2.0 and it's kind of increasing. And now that we're moving into Web 3.0, it's basically we're just copying and pasting the same idea. Some proponents of Web 3.0 are claiming it to be this magical fan space in the future of fandom, but I'm going to get to that in a bit and just tell you why that's not the case, at least as Web 3.0 and these communities currently stand. So again, a lot of this is just my personal frustrations, but I have been studying fandom in various forms for 9 years and studying it full-time for 5. And fandom, like Textual Poachers, came out in 1992. So people have been writing about these ideas for decades. And yet people in marketing and the media industry and the advertising industry like to act like they invented it or have just discovered this magical new idea. So this came from the Twitter marketing blog on July 7th of this year. And the article was about how they had done this survey and discovered that fandom was the key to entertainment engagement on Twitter. And because they collected this quantitative data, suddenly they could suddenly it was this breakthrough for everyone to know about. And it's like, people in fan studies have been talking about this since the internet began, like since the second hashtags existed, we've known this happened and we've been talking about it. But the people on the Twitter marketing team were like, oh, but it had to be quantifiable. And it's like, drives me mad again. That's a whole rant about how qualitative research is still valid. So the first paragraph there is just me being really annoyed that they have to state this obvious. But the second bit is just shows a lack of understanding of what a fandom is. I get the gist of what they're suggesting here, and it's good suggestions. They're encouraging entertainment marketers to engage with hashtags and handles and join the conversation with their fans. I'm going to get to that more in a minute. But you can't invite somebody to join your fandom. And saying you can is completely missing the key point of what fandom is. It has nothing to do with the brand at all, and often exists in opposition to it. Which brings me to my next point, our next section, which is brandoms and brand communities. So back in 2012, and I apologize again for an academic quote, but an academic named Matthew Gushwan created this term brandom. He wrote, I offer the term brandom to describe the pseudo fan culture engineered by brand managers eager to cultivate consumer labor and loyalty while preempting the possibility of resistance that participatory fan culture promises. And this is exactly what most people in, marketing strategy, advertising, media, who discuss fandom are actually referring to. Rather than a community that's all about community and fan participation, brandoms are centered on the extraction of money and labor from the fan community and audience. So please excuse my very shoddy design here, but you can see that if we take an entertainment brand as our central object, fandom and brandom exist as two separate forms of effective community. One which exists outside of the organization's scope and one which exists within it. And that's a really important distinction for us to make. So as Taylor Swift is one of my PhD case studies, I've spent a lot of time thinking about brandom and the ways in which her marketing team capitalizes on the labor of her fans. You can see on this slide some of the tweets from Taylor Nation, the fan engagement arm of her marketing team. There's an entire section of my thesis explaining the mechanisms behind Taylor Nation, but basically they're the gatekeepers to accessing Taylor, and they lure the potential for attention over their fans in order to get them to purchase and participate as much as possible. It's considered the ultimate badge of honor to get a like, a retweet, or a reply from Taylor Nation. However, those who are chosen for that engagement have almost always spent like loads and loads of money on merch or have gone above and beyond in their participatory behavior in an attempt to be noticed. They may send pictures of special Taylor-themed baked goods they've made, film videos of themselves sobbing while reacting to songs, share photos of costume recreations they've designed, and they're not necessarily doing this out of their love for Taylor and desire to bond with fellow fans, although this is part of it, but they're mainly hoping to get attention from the brand. While there is a Taylor Swift fandom, there is also a Taylor Swift brandom, and it's the brandom that other musicians and entertainment organizations want to replicate, because obviously it's where you get the money. So as K-pop continues to rise and rise and rise, more and more media stories about fandom apps are popping up. For those of you who don't know, these apps, the most known, a well-known version of which is Weverse, but Fave is one that popped up last week and I got very angry about. Are basically just social media sites for and apps for members of the fan community. The celebrities themselves often use the apps, as is the case of Weverse. And so just like with Taylor, participation is lured by the potential for attention. Some people claim these are the future of fandom spaces and that they're built by fandoms. But again, this is fundamentally misunderstanding the space. These apps are built by the brands to control how and where fans participate. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's not fan controlled. And fans use and have always used and will likely continue to use mainstream social media and websites like LiveJournal and Tumblr as the first step for their communities because they can find each other and easily communicate outside of the official means and away from the brand. And there's also just the little problem that most of these apps fail. There's a long history of them. Weverse is probably the exception to the rule. Taylor Swift's mobile app, the Swift Life, failed epically a couple of years ago. And almost every celebrity at times has tried to do this. And the reason they fail is fans don't want to be tied to the brand in such a strong way. They want their own spaces where they can participate how they want to. And so this brings us to the final concept I want to discuss, which is fan engagement and how people kind of get it wrong and what they should be doing. Again, there's some more awkward meet and greet photos of myself. So when I see people discussing fandom and fan engagement online, there's often a huge focus given to the idea of being the biggest fan or the most dedicated fan or the true fans, and advice being given to people that that's where you need to put all of your effort and attention and emphasis, and that those fans are the only ones who matter. But I will quite literally beg you not to think this and not to do this. Please, if you're ever working in these spaces, do not plan a strategy around this concept. I know it's tempting to look at the fans who spend the most money or devote the most hours to participating in a community and to want to reward them or base your entire strategy around them. But this only serves to reinforce socioeconomic hierarchies and alienate 99% of your fan base. This also connects to the 1,000 or 100 true fans theory that marketers like to throw around, where despite its name, it really does not apply to actual fans at all. Fans aren't consumers in the way we talk about regular consumers and audiences, and you can't treat them like they are. As an example, back in 2017, Taylor Swift announced Taylor Tix. It was a promo with Ticketmaster's verified fan, which ostensibly existed to prevent scalpers from accessing all of the tickets and selling them at a premium. And it was also a fan engagement strategy in which the big fans and the most loyal fans were going to be rewarded. But really, it just pissed off most of her fan base. Like, it backfired in a spectacular way. The premise was that you could collect points by buying merch, streaming music videos or songs, or like there was a whole list of things you could do. And those points would give you access to a spot in a pre-sale queue where you could have the first chance to get dibs on tickets, the exclusive tickets you were selling to a Reputation tour. These tickets cost up to $800 a pop, and the money you spent on merch did not go towards the cost of that ticket at all. There was giant backlash in the fandom, and people got really mad at Taylor, claiming she was only focusing on her richest fans and leaving those without the money or time to participate in this kind of scheme out to dry. People who don't know better celebrate these kinds of plans as successes that reward the real fans, but it's just not true, and it's ignoring the most important part of fandom, which is the collective community. The biggest mistake you can make is ignoring the majority of your fans by treating them like they're worthless if they're not spending top dollars. I know that a marketer's and an advertiser and a strategist's job is literally to get people spending, but when you're dealing with fans, you just can't be so blatant about it. A fandom is like an iceberg, and there's way, way, way more happening down below the most visible fans, and they're the ones who will cause you trouble if you're not careful. Fans not only differ between fandoms, but also within them. And the trick is to engage as many as possible where they are without appearing predatory and exploitative. It's important to remember that for every success you see marketers celebrate, 95% of the time, there's an angry fandom behind the scenes. So here's a really important point to remember. Fandoms can exist without their object of fandom. Hear me out. Fandom is all about community. Fans build their fandom around an object, but the friendship, the fan works, and the forms of participation exist outside of the official boundaries. If the object of fandom fucks up, breaks up, takes a weird turn, stops airing, the fandom can and often does live on. It's important to remember that you need the fans, but the fans don't need you. So to prove this point, let's take a quick trip down memory lane to discuss one of the most notorious fandom fails. So I was very, very into Teen Wolf back when it was airing, like many people my age. And it was one of the fandoms where I've actually met some of my closest friends. So back in the day, two things Teen Wolf were known for where it's the MTV fan engagement on Tumblr and Twitter, which started off being like top tier excellent. And they were also known for the ship Steric. That is the fan-desired relationship between Styles and Derek, played by Dylan O'Brien and Tyler Hoechlin, two of the main characters on the show. So back in, I believe it was 2012, this video happened.
Tyler.
Yeah.
Wake up.
No.
We're on a ship. Pun intended.
Whoa. Hey, man.
Hey, buddy.
Oh, hey, guys.
Oh, hey, guys.
Whoa, there's like a whole bunch of people right there.
Yeah, whoa. Didn't see the audience. We should.
Oh, we were supposed to tell them something.
We want to ask if you guys could vote for Team Wolf for the Teen Choice Awards. For the
Choice Summer Show, right?
Best Choice Summer Show.
Yeah.
Yep. Can you please do it? Because if you do,
we'll take
that's all that needs to be said.
We'll take more naps. I'm still tired.
Let's go back to sleep.
So that happened. And at first, fans were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, you're listening to what we want. This could actually happen. And then over the next couple of years, the show and the marketing around the show did nothing but continue to butter up the Steric fandom while not actually delivering in the show and almost going out of their way to not deliver in the show. And it's gone down as one of the biggest examples of queer baiting in wider fandom history. It's like notorious. And what happened was by the final couple of seasons of the show, the fans stopped watching. The fans were still involved in the fandom, but they were solely living through fic and conventions and the friendships they had made. They no longer cared about the brand. They didn't want to give the brand their money and attention because the brand had failed their fan engagement strategies. The brand had done what they thought the fans wanted, but they hadn't actually listened to what was going on. And they lost what was one of the most dedicated fandoms on the internet at the time. Like I said, brands need fans, but the fans don't need them. So, fandoms cannot be created or controlled by fans. There is no magical formula for their creation or existence. Fandoms occur when fans see something in a fandom object that's worth loving with their whole heart and then seek out others who feel the same. Fandoms are also not about money, although as my thesis explores, money is always involved in major ways. But a lot of fandom is built on the back of the gift economy. And those fans aren't interested in things like crypto ownership tokens or exclusive VIP memberships or being invited to some magical inner circle. That's just not what fandom is. You can create a brandom, but they can also be risky business if not managed well. The biggest mistake the brands can make is seeing their fans as dollar signs and free labor. Yes, you obviously need your fans, your audience, whatever, to spend money, but you can engage and respect your fans who might only be able to spend once every few years, but still love your object with their entire being. I understand why sports teams throw everything at their season ticket holders, but it shouldn't be at the cost of making the lifelong fan who's never been to a game feel like they're not valued. By telling a potential audience that you really only value the top tier who will be able to afford your commodified forms of participation, you're not creating an authentic community. You're creating an insular circle of people with money. I've heard people claim that if someone is truly a fan, they'll be willing to spend whatever it takes on all of your products. But really that's capitalist bullshit and could only come from someone who's never actually participated in fandom themselves. There's a lot of hype around Web 3.0 and the potential for fan ownership and the monetization of fan participation, but we need to find new ways to discuss this. It's not fandom, and it serves nobody to muddy concepts by trying to apply it willy-nilly when we already have ways to discuss this stuff. This would have to be a whole other presentation, but the idea that NFTs and crypto are a magical key to the future of fandom is just not correct. We can't look to specific niche organizations and claim it's going to be universal and something all brands need to follow. Especially as it currently stands, most fans just aren't interested in crypto or interested in having to buy an NFT to gain access to a real world meet and greet. And if you've been paying attention to the celebrity NFT world, most of them have failed. Some of the Web 3.0 stuff that's happening is cool, but we can't look at in-game Fortnite concerts or Top Shot or virtual reality clothing and claim it's fandom's future. The existence of these things do not suddenly make them a rule that should be followed. when people discuss this stuff, they're proving they don't know their fandom history. This is not the first time big tech has tried to get involved and capitalize on fandom communities and their existing spaces, but they always fail because it's not addressing fans where they are and how they want to be addressed. It's trying to capitalize and exploit them and make money. And that's just not what fandom is and what we should be trying to do with it. So I'm sorry, this was like 3,500 words, which is way too much. But there's still so much I have to say on these topics. If you have any questions, please ask now. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Fansumption. And if you want fic recs, I am always happy to give those out because I spend too much time that I should be spending writing my thesis, reading fanfic. So let me know. And I hope that wasn't too much of an academic word dump. You can take the girl out of academia, but not take the academia out of the girl, apparently.
Okay. I mean, I think all of us can agree that we can listen to you talk about this forever.
This is amazing.
Has been on fire. Everyone wants copies of your presentation, and we want to get you on, like, TED Talk stages and stuff.
We're just gonna blow it up.
Yeah, that's the plan. So who has questions? I'm here all night. I don't know if Georgie's here all day.
Yeah.
But
what's
Georgie,
work?
actually, I had a question.
Yeah.
I was curious if in your thesis you explored fandoms and how they differed culturally. So I know, like K-pop, for example, like BTS, Blackpink, their fandom is probably like very, very intense compared to what we know. Do you think it's like on par with Taylor Swift, or do you think it kind of differs around the world?
So it really depends. And it's not something I'm specifically looking at because, I mean, there are so many things I want to look at, but the scope is just so big. I initially wanted a third case study in my project, and my thesis advisor was like, no, that's too much. But there are a lot of people researching K-pop, and I read a lot of their stuff, and I've been to some conference presentations. And K-pop is something that is so unique and something we haven't really seen before, and you can't really compare it to any other fandom, because in many ways, and this is like a broader point about stan culture as well, in many ways, they exist as a brandom. Being willing to do anything for the celebrity and for the brand, and being willing to stream that much and buy that much and do anything in the name of your artists. And this is like a theory that I'm trying to make happen in fan studies, but I believe that's not a fandom as a fandom traditionally stands, because it's not acting in opposition or away from the object. It's acting in a way that embraces the commodification. And that's something that I'm exploring a bit in terms of Taylor Swift, because it's also something she does. But yeah, K-pop is just this whole other world, and I would love to do more work on it. But at the moment, I'm leaving it to people that more exist in those spaces. And so that's a big thing in fan studies. You can't be an outsider. It's really like there's a lot of backlash when people who aren't fans themselves try and research fandom and try and talk about fan cultures. And we've seen some backlash. BTS fans have rebelled against some people and doxed some people who have tried to talk about their fandom without permission or without being involved. So part of the reason I'm studying Taylor and Supernatural is because their fandoms I'm involved in and have insider status in, so the fans know I'm not going to write anything bad about something. Like, I've met Jared and Jensen and have my meet and greet pics, and so I'm seen as acceptable and somebody that's not going to make fun of them for doing the same thing. And so I'm not involved in K-pop, so I also just don't feel right writing about it myself because I don't understand the intricacies. But yeah, it's definitely a crazy fan space.
And I saw one of the apps you named, I think it was Faves. They were BTS backed, or one of them was BTS backed.
Yeah.
And I don't know actually if I found that out from your Twitter or somewhere else, but I remember reading about it.
Yeah, I'm still learning about Fave. It only opened like properly last week, but not many people have signed up to it. I was looking this morning and there's just under 2,000 BTS fans and 700 Taylor Swift fans on the app. But BTS's parent company like bought into it or something, and they're trying to make it this new big thing. But Weverse is the BTS and some of the other K-pop brands like official app that the celebrities are on and where most of the stuff takes place. I haven't used it, but apparently it's quite good, and is succeeding in a way things like the Swift Life weren't able to. So their fans are big dollars.
I have a question.
Yeah.
if you work in a position that requires you to understand specific fandom very quickly, like what comes to mind immediately is McDonald's and all their artist collaborations, or if you work at a live venue or whatever, if you need to understand a fandom as quickly as possible, what are your first steps to understanding them, assuming you don't have a lot of time or aren't a fan yourself?
This is a hard one because the obvious answer is to look at the most visible fans. And I think that's okay if it is just a short-term thing, but you can't do that as a longer-term strategy because those fans who like are in like fan studies and fandom world are called big name fans, they're not representative of a whole, and their interests and their consumer behaviors, especially like in the Taylor Swift fandom, some of the fans have like, 10, 20, 30,000 followers because they can buy everything, because they follow her on tour, because they've met her. But that's not representative of the fandom and how the rest of the fandom acts. So if you just look at those people and are like, oh, I understand the fandom, it's like, no, you don't. But that's like step one. And then it gets kind of iffy then, because it's like, what are you looking to learn about them? If you just want to look at what they're doing on social media and how they're talking, that's one thing. But then a lot of the other things involve getting involved in fan spaces. And it's just how you do that in a respectful way, because you're an outsider to that community and they don't like outsiders in most fandoms. And it depends on the type of fandom object. Like for instance, in sports, there's so many different types of fans. Like I'm very into NHL at the moment, but some of the most dedicated crazy fans I know exist only through locked accounts because they're very into writing fanfic about it. But they still like go to the games and they're very into it, but their fandom can't be understood by just looking at who has the most followers on Twitter. So it's this really complicated idea. And if you really want to get involved with the fandom, it involves like a lot of research and nuance and understanding. But to do it quickly, like the easiest way is just to look at big accounts and kind of go from there and follow conversations and hashtags. But yeah, it's not something I recommend unless you are doing it just for a quick one-off thing.
I also had a quick question. You talked about some of the bad examples of brands engaging with fandom. What are some of the good ways that brands have previously? And you also talked about the importance of the fandom object, especially in entertainment. What are some of the ways that, or good ways where shows or movies have incorporated fan theories into their universe?
Okay, so there are more bad examples than good, but for instance, you can take Taylor Swift as an example of somebody who does fan engagement really, really well. It's only because I'm writing my whole thesis on the ways that we need to look more closely at it that I'm kind of cynical about her whole thing now, because I've spent 3.5 years looking at it. But on the surface, her fans love Taylor Nation, that account, and love her, and they will just like, she released like a TikTok the other day wearing like a dress and it sold out like instantly because everybody wanted the dress she was wearing. Like they are the most dedicated fans and consumers, and they understand how the fans talk and how the fans want to engage and what the fans want. And it's really good engagement, but I'm cynical because it's also just about making money. But that's like at the end of the day, but it's the luring of attention and being like, oh, if you just participate hard enough, Taylor will meet you. Taylor will love you if you just do this. And it's like, Taylor should love me anyway. Yeah, so that's good. Supernatural's gone through stages of being good at it, but they completely blew themselves up in the last season. Like I have never seen a fandom so angry as the Supernatural fans were late last year when the finale aired. But some of the Supernatural actors are very good at it. Misha Collins is one of the best at fan engagement I've seen. For a while there, the Carolina Hurricanes were excellent at fan engagement on Twitter for the last couple of years, but they lost a lot of fan loyalty in recent months. I know so many people who have refused to be a fan now, especially because of the way their marketing strategy didn't pivot. For those of you who don't know, they signed somebody with a very racist history, which isn't the marketing team's fault, obviously, but the marketing team had this voice that was very much, oh my God, like bestie, like we're so glad you love us, like blah, blah, blah. And when the fans got angry, they didn't stop doing that. And the fans were like you're trivializing this issue. You don't care. You're not listening to your female and your fans of color and your LGBTQ fans. And so many people I know are just like, I refuse to ever support you again because you don't understand what's happening. But on the other hand, the Colorado Avalanche has one of the best fan engagement strategies I've ever seen. They were very involved in Tumblr back before hockey Tumblr was really a thing. They just really got the voice of their fans perfectly, and in a way that wasn't exploiting their fans. And then you have like the Marvel and the Star Wars stuff, which is just it's very controversial because you're never going to make anybody happy in those worlds. And the fans have so many theories and ideas, and they get so angry about them. I don't really study that area of fan studies, and I'm not like I've never actually seen Star Wars, but they're good at it sometimes and they're bad at it sometimes. And the issue is when you have a fandom that broad and something that's been going for years, you have the fans of the comics, the fans of the originals, people who loved a remake, people who hated that one. Like, you're never going to make everyone happy. But I think a big danger is never brands, like especially like movies and TV shows and stuff, like a big danger is being accused of fan service or just doing something because you think it's what the fans want. And that can also backfire because sometimes it's just awkward or not done well, or it's just like really obvious to everybody that that's what you're doing. And it's like, oh, like, why is this? Like, yeah, that's what the fans wanted, but maybe the fans should have just stuck to writing fanfic because when this happened, like, it's not good. I'm trying to think, what was the example of a show did that recently, and I can't remember what the show was, but it's like, this is fan service. But yeah, it's a complicated question and it really depends. But unfortunately, brands get it wrong more than they get it right. And yeah, I hope that kind of vaguely answers your question. That was a very rambly answer. Does anybody else have any questions about fans and fandom and how?
I have one question. Yeah. So outside of academia, what are you hoping to kind of do with, other than like, you obviously need to have a TED Talk about this, and I said that I want you to have a keynote on inbound. I think this would be so powerful and dope. But outside of just like, having presentations, where do you see this kind of information kind of going into maybe the workforce? Like, do you think that this is like a course that folks who work in like B2B influencer marketing should have, or like, just understanding these patterns, understanding behavior, understanding all of these things? Do you think this is something that will kind of infiltrate other areas outside of just the pure research of it?
That's the big question. And I've been thinking about it a lot recently because my thesis is technically due in February. I don't think I'm going to make that deadline just because COVID's fucked with it. But it's complicated. In America, there are a lot of companies and agencies who have been doing like consulting with like big entertainment brands. I actually went to a talk the other day about post-academia careers in the entertainment industry, and from somebody who works as a fandom researcher and does like work for like Universal and Warner Brothers and stuff, and they just get hired out to do research projects for them. And that's something I would love to do. Like, I'm a qualitative researcher at heart, but the problem is, one, I live in Australia and it's really niche over here. I'm looking into like market research and stuff, but it's not something I could do as a it exists as a full-time job, but it's not something I could do as a full-time job. But I think that the way as well they do it at the moment is very much people get hired, like the organizations will hire a strategist to do a single research project, and then they'll take the data, and like, that's fine. But I think, yeah, there is a space for more people just to learn about this on a broader scale, but I don't know what that would look like. And it's something I would love to do, but I don't know how I would make it happen. And also I need to pay my bills. But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing next, because also working in publicity, not currently really paying my bills. So if yeah, it's weird because it's also not really that acceptable within academia either. We're just like the poor cousins like off to the side, where people are like, oh, you study fans, isn't that cute? But yeah, I think it's so important, and it's such a big like cultural industry. And it's like, every time, like I swear once a week, I see a tweet go viral that's like, why are we like ostracizing the teen girls when like the sports fans are just as bad? And like, yeah, it's like in sociology, which is my space, sociology of sport is this huge, giant area, and people take it so seriously, and they talk about fans. But as soon as I say I want to compare those fans to media fans and to celebrities and to music fans, everyone's like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, does it matter? And I'm like, yes, we can learn so much, but it's just what that looks like and how to engage in fan engagement and fan marketing without it just being about pure ticket sales or pure monetary gains immediately. Like, there's a lot of history of, you know, oh, like, we need this to get results immediately for this one project, and if it doesn't work, like, what's the point of fan engagement? It's like, that's not what it is. But actually, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the podcast Fansplaining, which is by Flourish, Clink, and Elizabeth. I can't remember her last name, something beginning with M. But just today, Flourish, who has been like quite a big name in fandom since she was a teenager in the Harry Potter fandom way back in the day, she is leaving her job as a fan consultant to become a priest, which is random. But she did an interview today on the podcast about what it has been like working as a fandom consultant in the entertainment industry and how she got into it. And I'll retweet it because it's quite interesting read as like what that looks like and the frustrations of being a fan and working in that space when people still don't really listen to you. So that's a very long-winded answer to say I don't know what I'm doing and nobody knows what really exists in the space, but it's something that I'm passionate about. And I'm like, why isn't anybody listening? But yeah.
I love that. And I also hate that sexism is part of why you're not taken. That feels very ironic to be a woman in academia having to defend stuff and for people to care, like, yeah, just because it's, yeah, that's annoying. I mean, I think, at least I think you talking about this more is important because it's something that just the psychology and the sociology of people's behavior and just the where your brain has to be to create a world that exists outside of like K-pop. It's a brandom, like, absolutely, like, people can call on the army to like destroy a site that's like someone put up, like a really shitty site, or like I always, whenever like Trump's site would go down, I'm like, it's probably the army, because like you just, that SEO word goes off and they just come. And it's just so fascinating. Like, some of them are young kids, some of them are not, but just, I don't think I've ever loved something or loved the concept or the idea of a community enough to get into the fandom level, but that's so fascinating. And there's definitely that parallel in the brand world. Like, in like the B2B world, like, I feel like I'm like low-key Sprout Social's #1 biggest fan. I haven't used their platform in 5 years, but as a brand, I love them. As a brand, I love Twitter. Like, I have a LinkedIn keychain on my lanyard just because I like LinkedIn. Like, things like that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. But like worshiping a celebrity, not so much. But I think those concepts are really, like, they can translate into business. So again, like, I feel like you should speak at inbounds, have a TED Talk. We can all market your TED Talk. I think these are such